Welcome, dear learners. Today, under American literature, we would be discussing an important poem by Sylvia Plath. We are going to discuss the poem Edge by Sylvia Plath. Before going into the poem, I would like to read this quote. It's like being in a glass elevator in the middle of a crowded mall. You see everything and would love to join the crowd, but the door won't open, so you can't. Sometimes the worst place you can be is in your own head. The most common word of today is depression. Sometimes we need strength mentally and physically to be strong enough to balance our emotions and not to go into the face of depression. And this poem is about Sylvia Plath, who committed or who attempted suicide for so many number of times, and it talks about the psychological complexity of the poet. Sylvia Plath, 1932 to 1963. She is the well known American poet. She was a novelist and a short story writer. She is credited with advancing the genre of confessional poetry and is best known for the works like Daddy, the poem, Lady Lazarus, and also the novel The Bell Jar, which is a semi autobiographical novel published shortly before her suicide in 1963. Her poems carry a sense of alienation and self destruction, and she was under severe depression and she has attempted suicide many times. She married the English poet Ted Hughes and they had two children, and her pseudonym was Victoria Lucas. She has received the 1982 Pulitzer Prize for Poetry, making Plath the first to receive the honor posthumously. Even amidst fierce flames, the golden lotus can be planted, is the inscription we find on her grave. This is the poem of Sylvia Plath's Edge. The woman is perfected. Her dead body was the smile of accomplishment. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of a toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far, it is over." Each dead child coiled a white serpent, one with each little pitcher of milk now empty. She has folded them back into a body as petals of a rose close when the garden stiffens and orders bleed from the sweet deep throats of the night flower. The moon has nothing to be sad about. Staring from a hood of bone, she is used to this sort of thing. Her blacks crackle and drag. The first three lines, the woman is perfected. Her dead body wears the smile of accomplishment. Here, the poet says that the woman has reached a state of perfection. And this poem is the final poem written by Sylvia Plath, dated February 5, 1963, just 6 days before her death. Edge has been read by many critics as a reflection of her despair, hopelessness, and suicidal thoughts. It depicts a very eerie scene in which a mother and her two children lie dead beneath a staring, indifferent moon. So, here in the first three lines, we see how the poet compares death to a state of perfection. And the dead body has a smile of accomplishment as if it has completed a task. Her corpse is smiling as if proud of its achievement. So, here the tone is impersonal, and you could find the poet is completely detached. The next two lines, the illusion of Greek necessity, flows in the scrolls of a toga. Here you could find the toga, the flowing robes. So the flowing robes on the dead body makes her look as if she was fated to die like a character in Greek tragedy. And they could see how they are toga clad, they are barefooted, and they are stuck to the edge of a platform. So she compares the dead body to a character in Greek tragedy. Next, the poet talks about the bare feet. Her naked feet look as though they are glad that their journey, the long journey, is finished. So, come so far, it talks about, it also conveys the statement of power and strength here. And when you talk about the bare feet, it shows the vulnerability of women, the powerlessness, and maybe the power of indecision. It foreshadows Plath's impending suicide also. The next three lines we have each dead child coiled, a white serpent, one at each little pitcher of milk, now empty. We could find two dead children or curled up like white snakes at the mother's breasts, whose milk has now dried up. The perfected dead woman to serpent like dead children are focused here, where the child bearers are always a symbol of strength, a source of power, but the mother here is ready that she has killed both the children along with her life. And white, the symbol white, it talks about emptiness, where echoing perhaps the empty womb of the mother. And it also has a personal connection where it talks about the symbolic representation of the Sylvia Plath's personal multiple miscarriages. White serpent, it is an oxymoron here, where white is purity and snakes, it has a symbol of sinful and being devilish. And it also refers to the post nursing breasts of the mother. The next lines, she talks about now the children do not exist. So the poet feels that they have been folded into her womb, into her body. And she has observed her children back into herself. And here it is compared to a metaphor where she the mother has observed the children like the way a rose folds up its petals when a garden grows stiff with cold and lovely scents emerge from deep within the flowers at night. So here it could also be, uh, we could talk about miscarriage, Sylvia Plath's miscarriage, the possible thought of taking her children with her, maybe in suicide. The importance of motherhood is remarked here, and the spiritual identification with the children, whatever happens to a physical body, the spiritual thought is rekindled here. And because it is a cycle, it is absorbing within herself, it also, the critics say, it also refers to the menstrual cycle of a woman. And here we have the metaphor where she tries to defend the murder of the children, observing inside the mother's body like the mere closing of a flower at the approach of night. Thus we have a sensual but ghastly image of the night as many throated flower that bleeds, that orders, the emblems of love into maybe omens of death. The last few lines, it talks about the moon as the witness to this death of the mother and the children. Moon represents motherhood. Often the speaker may be the poet's mother also. And she says that the moon has no reason to grieve as she looks down like a face covered in bone. She's seen this kind of event many times. So she could relate these particular lines to patriarchal world in order to prove women's place as subservient, a cause for justified feminist anger. And Moon's indifference is specified here. So, where she talks about death, she considers death as a victory. At the same time, she talks about it is not much different from the condemnation of women for centuries. So, she says that it is a slow, dragging process of social change, and you could find a sense of sadness and mourning here. And she also, these lines could relate to the historical practice of men in power accusing women of witchcraft. And here, especially the word black, she drags the darkness like a crackling fabric. So here, the word the blacks could be referred to the long funeral curtains that drape the theater stage. The crackle and the drag, the curtains as they brush up and drag against the floor as they move across when a theater play comes to a close. So I hope learners, you understood a short interpretation of the poem Edge, and thank you.